Have you noticed how everyone suddenly looks different? It feels like overnight, the entire internet, your coworkers, maybe even your neighbors, have just inexplicably shrunk. We are living squarely in the era of the skinny injection, and it is the ultimate elephant in the room, or, I should say, the rapidly shrinking elephant in the room.
It really is everywhere you look. You genuinely cannot open a social media app without being bombarded by a miraculous celebrity transformation, or on the flip side, some terrifying headline warning people about sunken faces and severe medical regrets. It has completely hijacked our cultural conversation around health.
Exactly. But beneath all the red carpet gossip and the viral before and after photos, there is a profound biological shift happening. Today, we are taking a scalpel to the noise. We are moving past the superficial chatter and diving straight into the clinical reality of these new metabolic medications. What are they actually doing to your brain? Are they a modern medical miracle? Or are we just hacking our biology with consequences we don't fully understand yet?
That is the perfect question to anchor us, because the public perception is so fundamentally skewed right now. People look at these simply as weight loss drugs, a quick cosmetic fix. But we have to remember their origin. These were developed to manage severe diabetes. They are heavy-duty metabolic regulators, not over-the-counter diet pills.
Right. And that's where the confusion starts. So, let's build this from the ground up. If I take this medication, what is actually happening inside my body? Because the assumption is just that it melts fat, which we know isn't true.
Not at all. To understand this, we have to look at the incredibly complex communication network between your gut and your brain. These medications essentially mimic a naturally occurring hormone called GLP-1. Now, down in your digestive system, this hormone does something very mechanical. It drastically slows down the rate at which your stomach empties. You eat a meal, and it just sits there longer, making you feel physically full.
So it's like putting a roadblock on the digestive highway. The traffic backs up, and your body says, okay, we're full, no more food. But that's only half the story, isn't it? Because the physical fullness doesn't explain the psychological shift people talk about.
You hit the nail on the head. The physical slowing of digestion is just the surface layer. The real magic, and the real intense biological intervention, happens in the brain. This medication crosses the blood-brain barrier and directly targets the neural centers that control hunger, cravings, and the reward pathways associated with eating.
That is fascinating. So it's not just making your stomach feel tight, it is actively rewriting your relationship with food in real time. I've heard people describe this phenomenon as the disappearance of food noise.
Yes, food noise is the perfect term. For decades, clinical researchers have tried to explain this to the public. For many individuals struggling with severe obesity, their biological hunger switch is permanently jammed in the on position. Imagine a radio playing static at maximum volume in your head all day, constantly telling you to seek out high-calorie foods. This medication essentially acts as an electrician that goes into the brain and finally fixes that broken wiring. The static stops.
That sounds incredibly liberating. It reframes the entire conversation around willpower. We spent generations telling people who are overweight that they just lack discipline, that they just need to try harder. But if your brain is chemically screaming at you to eat, willpower is a losing battle.
It is a fundamentally unfair fight. You are fighting millions of years of evolutionary biology that wants to store fat to survive a famine. These drugs level the playing field by correcting a profound hormonal imbalance. It's less about suddenly finding the moral fortitude to skip dessert, and more about finally having a brain that doesn't view a donut as a life-or-death necessity.
I love the way you framed that. It's like finally fixing the broken signaling between the stomach and the brain, so you don't feel compelled to mindlessly snack on high-carb foods just to get a dopamine hit. But, as with all things in biology, there is no free lunch. Let's pivot to the trade-offs. The pros are obvious. The scale goes down, insulin resistance improves, and metabolic diseases can literally be reversed. But what is the catch?
The catch is significant, and it's where the medical reality clashes with the cosmetic fantasy. First, you have the immediate visceral side effects. Because you are artificially slowing down the gut, a huge percentage of people experience severe nausea, crippling fatigue, and intense gastrointestinal distress. Your digestive system is essentially being forced to operate at a fraction of its normal speed.
And I imagine that's why people hit what's being called the wall. They feel so miserable that they can barely function, let alone enjoy the weight loss. But beyond the nausea, there is a much darker, more insidious consequence that the fitness and longevity communities are sounding the alarm on. Let's talk about the muscle problem.
This is arguably the most critical issue we face with this pharmacological era. When you drastically reduce your caloric intake because the drug has killed your appetite, your body goes into a panic state. It needs energy, and it doesn't just burn fat, it aggressively cannibalizes your lean muscle tissue.
Which is terrifying. If you step on the scale and see you've lost 30 pounds, you might be celebrating. But if 15 of those pounds were pure, metabolically active muscle, you are actually destroying your health. You are becoming what people call skinny fat.
Precisely. Let's use a metaphor. Imagine your metabolism is a car engine. Muscle is the V8 engine that burns a ton of fuel, calories, even when you are just sitting parked in the driveway. Fat is just the luggage in the trunk. If you use these drugs and starve yourself without a strategy, you aren't just throwing out the luggage. You are ripping out cylinders from your engine to make the car lighter.
That is a brilliant way to picture it. And the horrific irony is that once your engine is smaller, your body requires way fewer calories to survive. So, what happens if you ever stop taking the medication?
Complete metabolic catastrophe. The food noise comes rushing back into your brain, your appetite returns to normal, but your metabolic engine is now half the size it used to be. The weight doesn't just come back, it comes back faster. And it almost always comes back as pure fat, not muscle. You end up in a significantly worse physiological state than the day you took your very first injection.
That should be printed in bold letters on every single prescription pad. It forces us to ask a really uncomfortable philosophical question. Are we treating the disease? Or are we just masking a lifestyle problem with a pharmaceutical band-aid that might ultimately leave us weaker?
It's the defining medical question of our decade, and the answer depends entirely on how the tool is used. If it is used as a magic wand to avoid doing the hard work of lifestyle change, it is a dangerous band-aid. But if it is used strategically, under strict clinical supervision, it can be a lifesaver.
Which brings us perfectly to the practical roadmap. I know there are people listening right now who are exhausted from fighting their biology and are thinking, okay, despite the risks, I need this intervention. If someone is going to step into this arena, how do they do it without burning down their metabolic engine?
Step 1 is non-negotiable. You have to abandon the med spa mentality. You cannot treat this like getting Botox. You need to find a specialized provider who understands clinical obesity medicine. You need a doctor who views this as a complex, long-term metabolic therapy, someone who is going to monitor your blood work, your thyroid, and your body composition, not just your total weight.
So, you're looking for a medical partner, not just a prescription dispenser. And step 2 has to be about what you do at home, because, as you said, you cannot medicate away a disastrous lifestyle. What is the best combination approach to actually surviving and thriving on this medication?
It requires an aggressive, intentional lifestyle integration. Because your appetite is so low, every single bite of food you take has to be highly strategic. Rule number 1. Protein is your absolute priority. You have to force feed protein if necessary, and you must combine that with heavy resistance training. You have to send a loud biological signal to your body that says, "Do not eat my muscle, I am still using it."
Lift heavy things and eat protein. It sounds so basic, but it is the only way to protect the V8 engine. What else? What about the sheer exhaustion people feel?
That's where sleep and sunlight come into play. You have to manage your natural dopamine and energy levels because the drug is altering your reward pathways. Getting morning sunlight, prioritizing deep sleep, these are foundational. And finally, we cannot ignore the gut. Because the drug slows digestion, constipation and GI distress are rampant. You have to be incredibly proactive about dietary fiber and hydration to keep the system moving.
It's almost paradoxical. The drug makes it easier to eat less, but it actually requires you to be far more disciplined and educated about the exact nutrients you are putting into your body. You are using the medication to quiet the noise in your head, but you still have to manually steer the ship.
That is exactly the right perspective. The drug is a bridge. It takes you from a burning building, which is severe metabolic dysfunction, across a dangerous river, to a safe island of metabolic health. But a bridge is just infrastructure. You still have to do the walking. You still have to build a sustainable life once you reach the other side.
I love that. A bridge, not a destination. And I think that is where society is getting it so wrong right now. We are looking at the bridge and thinking it's a luxury resort where we can just lie back and let the drugs do the work.
And the pharmaceutical marketing certainly doesn't help. They are selling the dream of effortless transformation. But true longevity, the kind of health that allows you to play with your grandkids and avoid chronic disease in your 70s, is never effortless. It requires preserving your muscle mass, maintaining your bone density, and having a resilient metabolism. No injection can give you that.
It really forces a profound shift in how we view health. We have to stop worshipping the gravitational pull of the scale. Shrinking is not the same as healing. Losing weight is entirely meaningless if you are also losing your strength, your energy, and your metabolic foundation.
Precisely. If there is one thing listeners take away from the science today, it should be this. Do not let the allure of rapid fat loss blind you to the long-term reality of your biological machinery. If you choose to use these powerful tools, do it with absolute respect for the power they hold. Arm yourself with data. Prioritize your muscle like your life depends on it, because it does, and treat the medication as an assistant, not a savior.
That is an incredibly powerful place to land. It's a brave new world of metabolic science, and these GLP-1 medications are undeniably a massive leap forward. But they are tools, not magic spells. They demand a deep, educated partnership with your own biology.
Absolutely. The era of the skinny shot is here to stay, but how we navigate it will define the public health landscape for the next 50 years. We have to demand better science, better clinical guidance, and a total rejection of the quick fix mentality.
Well said. It is about playing the long game. Thank you for completely dismantling the hype and laying out the stark, clinical reality for us today. For everyone listening, do not just take the internet's word for it. Dig into the longevity science, protect your muscle, and always question the hidden costs of a miracle cure. We'll be leaving some fantastic, evidence-based resources in our show notes to help you navigate this space safely.
It was a great conversation. Until next time, keep questioning the narrative.
We'll see you all on the next episode. Stay strong, stay informed, and remember your health is worth more than a quick transformation.